To go further in depth on this and other issues, we're pleased to be joined by retired Major General Paul Vallely. Paul is also the chairman of Stand Up America. Paul, thanks for Skyping in again from Big Sky Country in Montana and joining us here on America's Forum.
Thank you, JD. Happy to be with you again.
Now, Paul, you probably saw the video in which Luke Summers appeared. It was released by al-Qaida in the Arabian Peninsula late Wednesday night. Really his first sighting since he was kidnapped more than a year ago. I mentioned that attempted rescue by American Special Forces, but Summers was not in the location they thought he was going to be in. What more can you tell us about that rescue attempt?
Well, all of these individuals that become hostages, or at least we get some indication, they're tracked very carefully. And a lot of that information then will go to the Special Ops Command and the Delta Force operators who usually go in to try to extract or save these individuals. But it has to be based on very good intelligence and location so they can get in there covertly and snatch that individual, bring them back. And in this case, evidently the targeting information wasn't quite correct.
Al-Qaida in the Arabian Peninsula, it seems to be taking a page out of the ISIS playbook. Is there distinct ideological separation between and among these groups? What do we know about al-Qaida in the Arabian Peninsula?
No, there's really no delineation other than their names, JD. They seem to take on different names and morph into something else depending on where they're at. But they're all connected ideology. They're Islamic radicals. They intend to associate and also expand the caliphate, not only in North Africa, but they're attempting to do it in the Sinai, of course, as well as up in Iraq, Iran, and that whole area. So they're on the move, they're on the offensive, and that's why we've got to be better at us being on the offensive, tracking them down, destroying them wherever they are.
Well, as we work to eliminate ISIS, reports that we've been talking about all week about the Iranians flying missions over Iraq and attacking ISIS. The U.S. says obviously the Iranians are not our allies, but the attacks on ISIS, such as they are welcomed. What is your reaction now to seeing the Iranians involved in the Iraqi theater against ISIS?
Well, the first indication we received was well over a month ago, and supposedly the Iranian Revolutionary Guard dispatched about 3 battalions from Iran into Iraq, which would be on the eastern side of Baghdad. Of course, we've heard no involvement of them in any combat operations. We know they're active from an intelligence basis very heavily in tracking what's going on over there. I've heard nothing about northern Iraq and any involvement up there with the Peshmerga or against or for. It's such a mixture over there of different objectives, and it's just like a bad bowl of soup over there. I don't know what they're attempting to do other than to continue to be the hegemonic power in the Middle East and continuing to support Assad in Syria.
Paul, do you believe these Iranian air raids could have happened without at least some U.S. knowledge, not to mention possible coordination and approval?
No, I don't think so, because the United States still tracks via satellite and other intelligence gathering operations in that area, and they would know in that airspace of any air coming in there, commercial or military, and they would be able to track it immediately and identify where those aircraft are coming from. So we would have known any airspace violations, or it could have had the tacit approval of some of the Iraqis for the Iranian community because they're working together. General Suleiman is the general from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard that runs all the operations over there in Iraq as well as in Syria. And that's who they need to track down.
Paul, speaking of Iran, the president obviously doesn't want to see additional sanctions placed on Iran, but word emerged yesterday that our president is considering sanctions against Israel due to the Israeli intention to build new settlements. The issue came up at a press conference in Foggy Bottom. Here's what Deputy Spokesperson for the State Department, Marie Herf, had to say.
I'm obviously not going to comment one way or the other on reported internal deliberations. We've made clear our position on settlement activity publicly, and that hasn't changed.
Paul, as we hear that, the notion of sanctions against Israel but not against Iran is very curious, to say the least.
Well, the relationship with Israel now just befuddles me because the only democracy over there, and at every opportunity, the White House seems to snub Netanyahu. They seem to be in direct opposition on any policies regarding Iran over there. So we're sending a very mixed message over there, and as we sent a mixed message to Egypt, for example, General al-Sisi. So, and again, AJD, it boils down to a total ineptness and lack of visibility and a vision over there of the Middle East and what's really happening, looking at the realities of that situation. And we continue to step on our toes in the Middle East, it seems, everywhere we go, and it's not good.
Paul, we've got about a minute left. How can we rebuild this relationship between Israel and the United States?
Well, I think the first thing, we've got to really be able to meet with them and their planners over there as they look out over their borders and determine what reinforcement we can give Israel in case there is a launch by Iran. That they vowed to do is destroy Israel and ensure Iran knows that anything they attempt to do, that the United States and Israel will come down on them very hard, and they will absolutely put them in, that our coalition over there could put them in a serious situation that could destroy Iran as far as their government is concerned. So if you don't put the fear of Allah in them and the fear of God somehow, they don't react to anything.
Quite well taken. We'll have to leave it there. Major General Paul Vallely, we thank you for your time, and America's Forum will continue.